Hi everyone. So we're going to do a product review. So it is not this. This is actually the product review on this right here. So what this is a water boiler and heater. It's an electric water boiler and heater. And we're going to kind of like do a little bit nerding on the technology that's in this one and how it all works and why it's a good thing versus a bad thing. So this is not for everybody, of course. This is for the people who like to have hot water or use a lot of hot water. One of the benefits of it is it wastes a lot less electricity than if you were to boil water all the time. And what I mean by that is if you take water from a sink or so and you need to boil water or whatever it is, it wastes quite a bit of electricity. Rather, this, on the other hand, it doesn't. And I'll kind of explain, well, why is it that this wastes a lot less electricity? It takes a certain amount of energy to boil a certain amount of water. It doesn't matter if it's this machine or something else. Technically, it's about the same amount of energy. In the long run, yes and no. So this is the Zojirushi water heater boiler. It's a hybrid system, and there's some really interesting technologies that this has. I've had this for about almost 3 years now, and I'm going to tell you the goods and bads of it. So let's talk about the science behind it first. So imagine if you were to get an electric tea kettle or boil water on a stove. Let's just say you wanted to make a cup of tea or whatever it is. So a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, it requires a certain amount of energy to boil that water. Now we all know that we just don't boil 3 ounces or 2 ounces of water. Even in the microwave, it just seems a little bit ridiculous, and most of the time when you boil water, you're boiling a large amount of excess. So that large amount of excess that wasn't necessary wasted all this energy, all this electricity, all this power for no reason except to get your 3 ounces. You might boil 12 ounces, 24 ounces worth of water. So when you do all that and you waste all that electricity, you get your amount of water that you need, and then the rest of the water cools down, can you boil it again? Absolutely. So what's the difference between a water boiler and a warmer? The boiler side works the exact same way, wastes the same amount of electricity, and uses the same amount of electricity to get water to a boiling point. The difference now is you don't have to waste the water. What do I mean by that? Say you take 18 ounces of water and you boil it, and you only want to use 6 ounces of it. Well, the other 12 ounces, what happens is it cools down. This thing will keep it warm at whatever temperature you choose. Well, not whatever temperature you choose, but it's got some settings that sort of make sense. And this will maintain that temperature in the sense where you don't waste the heat. This thing is extremely well insulated, where it uses a very, very small amount of heat to maintain whatever temperature you want it at. So let's just say 160 degrees. Well, here's the thing about 160 degrees versus 208 degrees that this device can maintain. Yes, the 208 degrees, to maintain that temperature, to maintain that consistency, it costs a little bit more in electricity than 160 degrees, but not by much. Versus starting all over again from room temperature to reboil water. Well, this thing stays at the consistent temperature. It doesn't take a lot of electricity to maintain the temperature. But if it goes down from 200 degrees to 72 degrees, and then you got to reboil it back up to 200 degrees, versus, let's just say it drops 5 degrees or 10 degrees, and then it rises it back, it uses a little bit of electricity to bring it back up to 208 or sustain it at 208. A whole lot less energy overall, and at some point you are going to use that water again. So you don't waste all that water. You don't waste all that electricity trying to reboil that water. So it's great for being able to utilize hot water, have hot water whenever you would like to have hot water. And especially if you're going to use, let's just say, boil a pot of water to cook in or whatever it is. This is their 5-liter model, 3 gallons of water this thing can hold at whatever temperature. So if you're wanting to boil water to cook, simmer stuff, whatever it is, if you use the hot water in here, well, you don't waste any of that heated water. You can use every last bit of this water, and if you need a little bit more, yeah, you can take water from the sink or whatever it is, but in the end, it uses so much less energy to take the temperature from, you know, maybe it's 208 degrees Fahrenheit in here, and when you add the cold water from the sink, it drops it to 140 degrees, 120 degrees. Well, 120 degrees to get it to boil off of your stove is still less energy, less power. You've already conserved that power or so, conserved that heat or so in here. Well, if you took a whole pot of water and you needed a gallon and a half, whatever it is, well, it's still room temperature, 72 degrees of the entire thing to reboil all that water. Well, this is recycled heat. This is saved heat, not recycled heat, but this is maintained heat. You don't have to use all that energy, all that power to get that temperature back up again. And it will allow cook times to improve, less time to boil water. Yes, you can use a lot of energy. You can set it on high and it will boil it in, 15 minutes to boil a gallon and a half or whatever it is. But if you already have it here, that can cut the time to literally 10 minutes or less, which saves time saves money. You don't have to have the burner on for an extra 5 or 6 minutes, which in the end, in the long run, over time, you save energy. You're more ecologically friendly. So this is a dispenser as well too. So we're going to talk about the 5-liter model, and we're going to talk about some of that. So it dispenses water, very safe mechanism for dispensing water. You have a couple of different options. 160 degrees is one of them, like 180 something, 198, and like 208 degrees. Or there's about 4 different options that you can have to maintain that temperature of the water in here. I have tested this with a pretty decent thermometer, a digital infrared thermometer. I will say this: the higher you set the temperature, the less accuracy overall, because the temperature of the water, when you set it to the highest temperature, it fluctuates to anywhere from about 200 degrees to about 209 degrees overall when you try to set it to 208. So there's a little bit of fluctuation that occurs. Are you going to really notice the difference? Well, you can hit the reboil button, and realistically, if this is half full, it doesn't take that long to get it to 208 degrees or a boiling temperature. Yes, if it's 210 degrees, or let's just say it's 200 degrees, and you want to increase it 12 degrees to the boiling point of water, and you hit the reboil button, it might take 5 or 6 minutes, maybe a little bit longer to get that temperature up, and so forth. If you have this set at 160 degrees, you hit the reboil button, yes, it will take longer. From room temperature, about 68, 72 degrees, if this thing was completely full and you were to boil it, it takes about 25 minutes, maybe just a little bit longer than that, to boil the whole thing to boiling point. So it doesn't have, it's not a stove. It wasn't designed to have that much power behind it, but it does get the job done. Typically what I come to find is when it's about 2 liters left in here, I go ahead and refill it. It takes about 20 minutes to reboil the whole system, and overall it's a good balance, because most of the time when you're done using that water, you can just pour more in. It's not that complicated. Really easy to clean overall. Now, the coolest thing about this container is it's insulated 2 ways. First off, it has an insulation system in it, but also between the outer compartment and the inner compartment, it's also vacuum sealed as well too. Well, if it's in a vacuum seal, less conduction or so occurs through the medium, so the heat cannot travel through a vacuum system or so. It can't. If there's nothing to conduct in a vacuum seal, then it conducts less heat overall. So it maintains. It's extremely efficient. Uses very little electricity to maintain the temperature. One reason is because it is insulated. Second reason is because it is also, on top of insulation, also has a vacuum insulated layer as well too. Very, very nice to have. This thing runs about roughly, I think I bought this 3 years ago for probably about $250. If you use more than a gallon and a half of water, hot water, in a given week for drinks or hot tea, stuff like that, this is actually worth it. Mainly because it saves you quite a bit of time and quite a bit of money when it comes to boiling and all that as well too. So is it worth it? Yes, it is. Is it for everyone? No. Once again, it's designed for people who like hot tea or whatever it is. The company also makes smaller versions of this as well too. I think the smaller versions, none of them really have a vacuum seal. It's not really necessary because when you look at 3 liters, 2 liters, less than half a gallon, you really don't need the vacuum seal to maintain the efficiency anymore because it doesn't require that much electricity to boil or to heat up 3 liters or 2 liters versus 5 liters. Like I said, 1.3 gallons to maintain it. Yes, it uses a lot of electricity, but with that vacuum seal, literally cuts the electrical cost down quite a bit overall. I think in a given day, this thing, to keep it at 208 degrees, if this was completely full, only uses like 24 watts worth of power, and that's it. Which is, if you think about boiling a gallon, 1.3 gallons of water, 5 liters of water, you're going to use just over a kilowatts worth of power just to boil that much water in pretty efficient electrical systems. Well, insulation wise, like I said, just to maintain it, 24 watts, not a kilowatt, not 1,000 watts to boil that. If you think about electric kettles or so that are boilers, it's great. You can boil a small amount, but still, once again, you have all this left over that has to be there to boil your 2 or 3 ounces, 6 ounces of water. A lot goes to waste. It cools down, and it wasn't designed for that. These systems right here, like I said, it maintains the heat for you. You always have it readily available. You can always dispense it. This is nice in the sense where it has a dispense setting for low and high, as in you can dispense a little water at a time or as much as the pump can handle. One of the biggest problems I've noticed is with the 5 liter, it's a whole lot of water. This thing is a lot taller, so the pump wise, when this thing is full, the pump works great to dispense water on both the high setting and the low setting. But when it gets less than half of this tank full, it seems like gravity takes into effect. Pumping water is a little bit more hard for this pump to work. Once again, it's just the science of it. Well, when you're trying to pump a column of water or so up, and you have to go against a lot more resistance, then yes, the pump works a little bit harder. Does it work? Yes. Is it one of those things that will increase failure? Absolutely, because if you have the pump work harder, of course, it's mechanical. A pump is mechanical. A water pump is going to be mechanical. It's going to break at some point if it has to use more, if it has to work harder. So the higher the fill on it, the less the pump has to work because it's not going against its own forces. It does come with a handle, so it's nice to carry around just in case you do need to carry it and pour it. This top lid does come off as well too. Easy to clean overall. I think realistically, because I have some pretty decently filtered water here, I only have to clean it maybe once every 6 months just to keep it free of sediment and deposits or whatever it is. Overall, I've never had any breaks or anything like that. It's looked pretty clean, easy to clean on the outside and inside as well too. So that is the benefit of having a water boiler and heater. Once again, the bad side is the bigger they are, if they come with pumps, there's a bunch of different ones, and I don't tell people I recommend this one for them. If you're only going to need a little bit of hot water, I'd recommend getting the smaller 2 liter, 3 liter water boiler heater systems, mainly because they're really they're a little bit easier to manage, they're not as heavy, they use overall the same amount of electricity compared to the bigger ones, but it's just so much less electricity to use overall. It does have a little window so you can figure out exactly how much water is left in the system. All in all, even all these little things that can reduce and conduct heat away from the system, realistically, it just does not use that much electricity to maintain it. Very, very well insulated. There's about 3 or 4 companies that make these water boilers and heaters. I like this one because ultimately the company has been known for making these products. They're a little bit more pricey, but but once again, a little bit more pricey than most. But if it's going to last and last and last, this is not an item that you use and then you forget about it a year later. This is something that most people, if they like, Asian people or English people who like drinking hot tea, Americans, whoever it is, hot teas, hot coffees. This is great for making hot chocolate and all as well too. Really easy to refill, really easy to clean, and then on the most part, does it stay out of the way? Absolutely. There's a reboil button, so if you just want to reboil all the water, you just hit that button and it'll get all the water to boiling point for you. There's only one little caveat that I wish the system had, and that was the ability to turn the sound of this off. So this is the weirdest thing about these devices is when you boil the water, when it gets to the point where the water is boiled or where it has the temperature where you want it set at, from when you pour in the water, it will do this little kind of like musical note or so and let you know that the water is ready for you. Truthfully, if you pour it and like 30 minutes later it dings in the middle of the night to let you know, it's kind of annoying. I really don't need it. I wish there was a way to turn it off. I know if I had this for 3 years, it's one of those things where I was like, well, you know what, I can live with it because of the benefit that it has overall. So I'll deal with the noise. I wish the company decides that it would be worth it where you had an option to have that alarm and maybe something a little bit more comfortable, something a little bit more soothing, but this will definitely let you know. The smaller versions, like I said, they have ones that are made from other materials and they have other designs on them as well too. I'm more of a generic person. I don't need the extra designs, but they're there if you want them. The connector, the electrical connector, is a magnetic locking connector, so it's really nice where if it accidentally falls off or it doesn't get tugged, and this thing doesn't spill as well too. So it's very, very nice where if something gets pulled or whatever it is, or something pulls against the electrical outlet or somebody trips on the cord, this thing is not going to tip over. It also comes with a carousel on it as well too, where it'll rotate. So it's very, very nice to have the ability to rotate this as well too, based upon your need. So those things they really did think when they made this product, and it's been very, very nice. There's a little heat port or so, and the whole point where this heat port is, yes, you can feel the heat come out. So there's a lot of heat that it loses from here. I say a lot of heat, but the fact is, if you do the sheer math, and it only takes, and it can maintain the temperature inside at 208 degrees on 24 watts. I'm okay with it losing heat, but mainly this is a pressure release port as well too. So once again, hot water, boiling water produces gas. It produces pressure inside, so this relieves that pressure. So it's very, very nice. And the system that they have to do it, if you kind of look under the lid, it's a condensing system, so it doesn't get rid of a lot of excess heat. And realistically, even if you feel the top, yes, it is warm. So all this, is the heat loss that you have from it. But if you feel the sides of it, it is cool to the touch. So the only part of it that's warm is this top lid right here, and that's it. There's a little tab right here where you can open the whole entire system. Yes, there's hot water in here because I'm actually still using it, but ultimately, that's it. That's as simple of a system as it gets. Is it worth it? Yes, because it's environmentally friendly, because you don't have to waste a lot of electricity to reboil water over and over again. If you think of the sheer math, if you were to use a gallon worth of water, that you continuously just reuse that same gallon to boil water so that you could have a warm beverage. If you continuously boil that water and use it, you would use so much more electricity than having something that's already warm, using its insulation or so, and maintain that heat to not lose that heat. Like I said, I look at it this way: is every item has to have a cost benefit to it. Every item has to have a benefit to me where it decreases my overall cost of usage compared to what I would normally do. But of course, at the same time, it's environmentally friendly as well too. Using less electricity means less burning of coals or whatever it is. And the other side of the coin is if you use less electricity, your electric bill is less as well too. Well, okay, so I'm helping the environment, I'm saving money, I have a warm drink whenever it is I want. I don't have wait time. If I do, it's a whole lot less overall. And once again, I've had it for 3 years. It works absolutely fine. These things were designed to last for quite a bit of time, and I would think that probably I will say the 5-liter canister I really didn't need. For a single person, no, I didn't really need it. For a household of 3 to 5 people, there's a benefit to it. Probably as a person who lives by myself, I could have probably done with a 2 to 3 liter a warmer heater, and it would have worked absolutely fine for me. It wouldn't take as long to boil the water. I wouldn't have to worry about boiling a lot at any given time. And realistically, electrical cost, like I said, is like if you think about 3 liters in this thing versus 3 liters in one that was designed for 3 liters, is it going to cost about the same? Overall, yes, it is. I just originally bought this thinking, hey, I'll use that much hot water, and the truth is, I actually use quite a bit of hot water. Mainly the main reason why I use it is because I like to make coffee. Even though my coffee is iced coffee, if you all want to see how I make it, I have a video on how I make my iced coffee. But once again, it has to start out as hot water. And in where I live, yes, during the winters it gets really cold, so it's nice to have a warm beverage or so. Makes you feel warm, keeps you from getting cold. It doesn't waste time. Like I said, it's like if I have to wait for hot water, I know people use Keurigs and all that as well too. Very small amounts of water. Once again, I'm not a Keurig person. If you are, great. It's great that you use that system to make coffee because it only boils the water it needs. So those systems are probably more efficient than this is. But once again, you get a very, very small amount. You hit the start button, it gives you 6 ounces worth of water that heats up, and you got to keep on hitting it again over and over. Well, this thing right here has 3 liters to 5 liters readily available at any given time. You dispense it and you're good to go. And you can refill this as much as you need. Overall, like I said, I'm assuming the Keurigs probably when it comes to electrical cost, a whole lot less. Systems to make coffee like that, a whole lot of waste as well too. So not environmentally friendly. There's so much waste that comes with those disposable cups that people use. Does it make the best coffee? Well, it probably makes really good coffee for the people who enjoy it. Like I said, everybody's coffee preference is different. Mine, I like to make my own coffee. Takes a little bit of time. I like the quality to my coffee, and that's how I choose. That's one of the other reasons I use this instead of one of those instant coffee makers, as I call them. So those are the benefits. Do I recommend it for everyone? No. It's for those people who like to have hot water, who can afford something that is kind of on the pricey side. They do have versions of these systems that are fairly inexpensive overall, so you can always look for them. But ultimately, it's nice to have if it's within your budget. It's nice to have for people who use hot water more frequent than most. And it's for people who do things with hot water more than what other people do. I will say this, if you have a tub of water or so and it's not hot, well, you can use the water in here and kind of dilute the heat just a little bit and keep your tub warmer if you're taking a bath as well too. I don't recommend doing it for that, but it's one of those things where you can actually do it for. You can use it to melt stuff as well too. But once again, it's nice to readily have available. Thank you very much for watching my video.